أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وارزقنا فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين اللهم افتح إلينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الكرام ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to session 8. Inshallah, we'll jump right into it and start with the Hikam. We left off last time at Hikam number 47, so we'll start with 48. And hopefully, if time permits, I want to do all the way up until 57, inshallah. So the next 10. This will be parted into two basic themes. The first theme is he's talking about, or rather three themes. The first theme he's going to just touch on deeds and sins. And then he's going to talk about awrad, or like the du'as that we do, and I'll explain that when we come to it. And then he's going to talk about light. So he's touching on them, but then when we progress further deeper into the text, he's going to expand a little bit more. He's going to come up back and talk about awrad, or he'll come back around and talk about the sins and deeds, or he will talk about the nur. So he says, number 48, he says, min a'lamati mawtil qalb, adamul huzni ala ma fataka min al-muwafaqati wa tarkun nadami ala ma fa'altahu min al-mukhalafati. In your version there it says, min wujudi zallati. It's the same meaning, just a different word. He's saying from among the signs of the death of the heart is an absence of sadness or sorrow regarding what you have allowed to pass, to expire from the acts of obedience, and the abandonment or forsaking of regret, having no regret over what you have done from the violations, the errors and the mistakes. From among the signs of the heart being dead or dying is that you have no remorse, you've got no sadness, you're not feeling that you missed something out from the acts of obedience. The opportunity passed away and you had an opportunity to do something that was as a part of ibadah, as a part of obedience, a good deed, but you don't feel the sadness of it, the huzn of it. Or you've got no remorse or regret when doing something wrong or doing something that you are guilty of. These are among the signs of the heart that is dead or dying. لا يعظم الذنب عندك عدمة تصدك عن حسن الظن بالله تعالى. Don't let your sin reach such an extent, such a proportion, a great proportion, that it then deters you from having a good opinion of God Almighty. Because people do that. They feel like, I'm a sinful person, I cannot show my face before God. I've committed too many sins, I'm an evil person. Don't let that deter you from having a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِنَّ مَنْ عَرَفَ رَبَّهُ اسْتَصْغَرَ فِي جَنْبِ كَرَمِهِ ذَنْبَهُ. For indeed the one who truly knows his Lord knows that his sin is insignificant in light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's generosity. If you truly know your Lord, you understand your Lord more in those attributes that are merciful, that are benevolent, than those that are wrathful. His mercy far supersedes his wrath. The one who truly understands his Lord in that regard realizes that though I have committed a sin, though it is such an immense sin, you still recognize that your Lord is someone you can turn back to in forgiveness. لا صغيرة إذا قابلك عدله. There is no sin that is so small that there is no sin so small when His justice confronts you. ولا كبيرة إذا واجهك فضله. And there is no sin that is so great when you are faced with His grace. No sin is too small for His justice, in that, oh, it's just a small thing that I've done. It's like it's negligible. When His justice is enacted, each and every, even the tiniest morsel, the size of a mustard seed, is worthy of scrutiny when it comes to His justice. But when it comes to His mercy and His grace, no sin is too great when confronted with His mercy in His grace. لا عمل أرجى للقلوب من عمل يغيب عنك شهوده ويحتقر عندك وجوده. No deed is more hopeful to the heart than that deed which is absent from its witnessing, meaning you are unaware of it. And its presence is despising to you, like you don't want to commit it, you don't want to do the deed. This is where the heart and the self are distinguished, because the deed that you are faced with doing, that you don't want to do, or you're unaware of doing it, that comes from the volition of the self, the lower self. But the higher self has an inclination towards good. It is always attracted to good. And because of that attraction to good, it's the higher self that wants to do it. But the lower self is what's preventing you from attaining that. That deed, when you're feeling this sense of, I don't want to do it, or you want to delay it, or procrastinate, or I'll do it later when I feel like it. Like he says in the other aphorism when he said about delaying or postponement of the deed. That's coming from the lower self. That deed is more beneficial and more hopeful to giving you salvation than the deed that you are accustomed to doing, that yourself is okay with doing. The one that you're feeling more resistance towards, that's the deed that is actually going to benefit you. So now he talks about the wird and the warid. Now, he's going to talk about wird and warid later on. So I want to just help you here, because translations are a problem here. A word like wird and warid, awrad, these are words that you really cannot translate. There's no translation that fits that. A wird is basically a collection of the ayat that you would recite, du'as, like you do ayatul kursi, the last 3 ayat of Suratul Baqarah. Maybe you will do what we like to call the 4 kul, and then Durood Shal. So that's a wird now. That's a collection of different invocations or supplications that you would do. That's a wird. Then you have something called a warid. The warid is what comes from the wird. The best translation you could give it is an inspiration. So in Arabic you have this dynamic. Like when we did Ghazali's text Kimya, he spoke about the qalb and the qalib. So the qalb is the core, and then the qalib comes from the qalb. The qalib is the body. So the body is an extension of the heart. What the heart does is going to be manifested by the body. So the wird is the core. It's the actual husk. And then what comes out of it in terms of this inspiration or this sense of calmness or tranquility, or you're trying to work out something in life, you have a problem that you're dealing with, and then you do a certain wird, like you recite certain ayats of the Quran. Like you'll see many scholars will do this. If they're reading something or reciting, or they're trying to explain something and they can't remember, then they will just do Allahumma salli wa sallim alayhi, and then somehow it's just going to click and they will remember it. So that thing, that's called the warid, the fruit that comes out from the wird. So he says, إِنَّمَا أَوْرَادَ عَلَيْكَ الْوَارِدِ لِتَكُونَ عَلَيْهِ بِهِ وَارِدًا. Indeed, He only brought upon you the warid, this thing that you're getting from the wird that you're doing. He only gives you, because the wird is what you do. The warid is what He gives you in return. We'll come to that other aphorism much later on. I don't want to rush that, but it will actually expand more on what this means, the difference between, or the relation between the wird and the warid. But understand that the wird is what you do, the warid is what you get from doing the wird. So He gives it to you, He grants you with this inspiration or this thought or this idea, something that will help you overcome whatever it is you're overcoming. And this is not the kind of inspiration that you get from any sort of material gain. Like I've seen a lot of Muslims like to do these kind of things. Or recite Surah Baqarah every morning for you to get barakah in your business. That's not what we are referring to here. We're not referring to those type of things. Or if you want to get married, recite Durood Sharif 200 times every day after Fajr, and then you'll find someone. That's not how it works. The word here, the warid here is an inspiration. It's a means by which you will find some clarity, or by the means by which you will find some tranquility if you're going through a period of turmoil. So this is what He's granting you. Now, why is He granting you this? He is only giving you this wird. He brought upon you this wird so that through it you can grow closer to Him. Because when it now works out for you, Alhamdulillah, shukr is what you are able to grant Him. So you get closer to Him, because through the wird you found a solution, and then that makes you understand or realize that it's Allah who brought the wird, the warid to you, gave you this inspiration, and through this is now you are able to reach some sort of clarity. So He is only granting you this so that you can come closer to Him. It's a means to the ultimate destination. أورد عليك الوارد ليستلمك, or it can be ليتسلمك in your version, من يد الأغيار. He brought upon you the warid, the inspiration, so that you may be delivered from the grasp of otherness, the vicissitudes, the alterations, the extensions, the distractions. He gave you the warid, the inspiration, so that you can be released from those things. وَلِيُحَرِّرَكَ مِنْ رِقِّ الْآثَارِ, and that you may be freed, you may be liberated. You can get this hurriya, this freedom from the athar, the traces of creation. This is what in Islam, this is what hurriya means. If you want to look at the concept of freedom, anybody can try this out. You can go on Google, go open the Oxford Dictionary, Cambridge, whatever, and look up the definition of freedom. It'll talk about a lot of things, but all those definitions can be summarized to have some sort of material relation. Political freedom, the liberty to move around, which is true. That's a good liberty. That's a liberty. The liberty to have the ability to move, to go places. But true freedom, al-hurru abdun ma qana' wal-abdu hurrun ma tama'. The free man is not a slave. Like, so the free man, al-hurru and abdun. So you have the free man, and then you have got the slave. So the free man is a slave so long as he's covetous, he's greedy. Because greed is something that is related to the vice, it is internal. You're greedy of things, you're greedy of status, you're greedy of whatever it is that you've got an inclination towards, you're a slave. And the slave, though he's bound physically, is actually free so long as he is not covetous, so long as he does not have an inclination towards those things. This is what you call true freedom. And He's giving you inspiration so that you can find true freedom. So long as you're attracted to other things, you are a slave to those things. أوراد عليك الوارد ليخرجك من سجن وجودك إلى فضاء شهودك. He's given you inspiration so that you can exit from the prison of this fleshy existence into the vastness of your witnessing, because you're in a state of muraqabah, you're in a state of being observed. The true, the divine, you have been, he's veiled from you. There's a veil on you. You're not able to witness true divinity. Before an individual comes into Islam, i.e., before an individual submits to the will of one true God, that person is veiled from witnessing divinity. Until that person submits through utterance that there is no deity save for Allah, then he slowly begins to witness this divine presence. So the warid, he's giving you this warid so that you can be freed from this state of existence which is dhulma, a state of darkness where you are imprisoned by your vices and the causality of the world that you occupy, so that you can then journey and reach a state of witnessing the divine presence, a state of mushahada. And that's what the light is for. That's what the light is there to guide you. So you can, in the past, this is how they navigated during the night. They observed the lights of the stars and the placement of the stars, and that gave them an idea of where they are or what time it is, what part of the night are they on, and which direction they should go. Like following the North Star, for example, gives them a clue of which way is east and west and south. So the lights are there to guide your path. So this is what he says, Al-Anwaru mattaya al-qulubi wal-asrar. The lights are the mediums or the means, expedients. They are instruments or the riding beasts, you would say. They are the things that guide you. So the lights are the means or the mediums or the guides for the hearts and their innermost secrets. The lights are ultimately there. Even the physical light ultimately is there to guide the heart. If you cannot see with your physical sight, then you cannot comprehend this external world. The same applies to the metaphysical dimension. If you don't have a light, a guiding light, a spiritual light, then you would not be able to navigate those inner dimensions and unveil those inner secrets. An-nuru jundul qalb. Light is the army of the heart. Kama anna dhulmata jundun nafs. Just like how darkness is the army of the soul or the self. فَإِذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ أَن يَنْصُرَ عَبْدَهُ أَمَدَّهُ بِجُنُودِ الْأَنْوَارِ. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants success, wants to aid His servant, He reinforces him with the army of lights. وَقَطَعَ عَنْهُ مَدَدَ الظُّلْمِ وَالْأَغْيَارِ. And severs him from the reinforcements of darkness and vicissitudes and otherness. So what is light? An-nuru lahul kashf. Nur, to light belongs the unveiling. That's what light is. In its inherent property is to unveil, to reveal, to make known what is unknown. You come into a dark room and you don't know what's there. You can't see anything. Then you switch on the light and now light starts falling on all these objects and then enters your sight. And now you're able to see there's this object there, there's that object there, and this is what's going on in here. Now you're able to see. That's what light is. Light in its inherent property, whether we are speaking about physical light in this physical world or we're speaking about this spiritual light, it is in its inherent property something that reveals. And what does it reveal? It reveals the path to the divine presence. So to light is the unveiling. وَالْبَصِيرَةُ لَهَا الْحُكْمُ. And to intellect or intelligence belongs the discernment or judgment in this case. You discern now when something is unveiled for you, now you're abstracting from it and you're understanding something by it, and then you are concluding something so that you can have certainty of truth in it. وَالْقَلْبُ لَهُ الْإِقْبَالُ وَالْإِدْبَارُ. And to the heart belongs the approach and the retreat. This is what the heart is doing. It's back and forth. It's an ebb and flow. Progress, advancement, and then introspection and contemplation. So you're moving forward, you learn something, then you contemplate on it, you go backwards. So you have fikr and then you have tafakkur. These are the three functions of logic as it transcends. The first is the whatness of a thing, to grasp something. When you see something, light shines on it, it unveils its reality for you, and now you are able to know what it is. That then leads you to understanding it, and that understanding then allows you to pass judgment on it, to conclude as to what it is really, and how is it, and whether it's this and whether it's that, to reach a certainty of that thing, to remove other ambiguities. That's what the intellect is now doing. That's what intelligence is doing. Intelligence is moving from abstracting the essence of a thing to conclude with its finality. And then comes now the function of a higher intelligence, which is the heart now. And what the heart is doing is it's doing this ebb and flow. It is reflecting, contemplating. It's examining, it's analyzing, it's doing what you call reasoning. So these are the three functions that we're looking at in logic. We'll stop here, inshallah, and then do the next, because he's going to talk about obedience. He's going to expand a little bit more about the journey. Whims and suppositions. Okay, so we'll stop here, inshallah, and then we'll continue in the next session. So those are the three functions that we're looking at. That's why now we are going to go to logic. And last week we looked at the love, and we said that the love can be mufrad, like singular. Now singular, mufrad means singular, but in logic singular, because singular can mean something else. So singular is really the wrong term there to use. The more appropriate term would be the basic or simple term. So al-mufrad being the simple term, and then you have got the mu'allaf, which is more of a compound term. So you have the incomplex and the complex. So the simple term is just one word or one term in association or complete association with one thing. And a complex term is more of a composite of terms. So if I say water, then water, the term, is referring to just that one component, water. But if I say glass of water, there are two components in there. So that's now compounding it, because this is a composite object. It's not just glass and it's not just water. It's a glass of water. There's water in there. So it's a more complex term. And then the complexity can increase from there on. So when we're talking about the human being, for example, if you say human, that's the complete, that's the mufrad, that's the basic term. Then we can say man and we can say woman. So we're already separating the two. Then we start building more and more compounds out of that, because you start now looking at the composite. You've got hands, you've got legs, you've got this, you've got that, you've got all this. So you can build an entire sentence out of that. And sometimes that sentence alone can be a term. Very rare, but it can be a term. Usually the term is as simple as possible. The simplest possible gives you the exact or the precise. The more compound it becomes, the more complex it becomes to unravel it. So he said that the lafz can be either mufrad or mu'allaf. It can either be basic or singular. Singular is a weak word to use there. It can be basic or simple, or it can be complex and compound when it is composite of multiples. Now, as for the mufrad, it is either kulliya or it is juz'iyya. It is either universal or it is particular. The universal is وهو الذي لا يمنع نفس تصور مفهومه عن وقوع الشركة كالإنسان، وإما جزئي وهو الذي يمنع نفس تصور مفهومه من ذلك كزيد. So the universal is the term whose intelligible comprehension does not prevent its association to the whole thing in its meaning. Does not prevent the occurrence of commonality therein, like human. What do they say in the footnotes? A universal is a logical category. It can be applied to more than one singular entity, such as the words human, planet, or tree. A specific member of a category is termed as a particular, juz, such as Zaid, Jupiter, or the tallest tree in the forest. A particular cannot be logically applied to more than one singular entity. The most common usage is with proper names. For example, the name Khalid is designated to represent only a particular individual. It cannot be logically applied to another person, no matter how similar the two individuals are, as the role of a proper name is to distinguish one singular entity from all the others. This would apply even if the other person's name is also Khalid, because in reality, there are two proper names, each designated for a different individual. Even if the two names are the same word, each person was named with his own individual name so as to be distinct and distinguished from other persons, and is tangential and unconsequential matter, and it is a tangential and unconsequential matter that their two names are identical. The primary purpose of naming was thus achieved. So the universal is when you have a group of entities and you're looking at these entities in this group and you can sort of universalize them. You can see what is common among them. This is universal. Universa is to turn into uni. Versa, versus, when you it's from Latin. So if you said this versus that, then you're saying that they are opposite. So one turning against the other, right? Vice versa, or vice versa as we say. It's the turning of one against the other. So universal is turning the particulars into one, or drawing the one from the many, abstracting the one from the many. So if we have a group of entities here and we call them all human, then we are universalizing what is common among each and every individual. And we are calling all of them human because they all have humanity in them. However, each individual will have their own designation. One will be a man, the other a woman, a child, so on and so forth, a boy or a girl. And then each individual will have a name, for example, like Zaid and Khalid and Amr and Fatima and Aisha. So even if you have got two individuals with the same name like Khalid and Khalid, even though the word is the same, and this is why we distinguished between the lafz, the word, and the kalima, and the tasawwur, the concept. The word might be the same, but the lafz applied to one Khalid is different from the lafz applied to the other Khalid, because both Khalids are different. So each one of those are particulars in the universal category. So if you have a tray, if you have a, let's say, a bowl of fruits, fruit is the universality among all those different fruits. But then you've got an apple and an orange and a banana and all that. So each one of those is a particular. And those particulars are not the same. They are individuals. So a singular term can either be universal or it can be particular. Let's look at now the universal first. والكلي إما ذاتي وهو الذي يدخل في حقيقته جزئيته كالحيوان بالنسبة إلى الإنسان والفرس. So the universal can either be essential, you're talking about the essence that is universal among them. Where was I? And it applies to the essential reality of all the particulars in that category. Such as the term animal can be applied to human, horse, dog, cow, goat, lion, so on and so forth. They all share the same universal essence. They are all animals. وَإِمَّا عَرَضِيٌّ وهو الذي يخالفه كالضاحك بالنسبة إلى الإنسان. Or it can be accidental. So you've got the essential and the non-essential or the accident. Accident here is a technical term. It is the happening or the byproduct of, the extension of. So it is an extension. So if we say, for example, the one who is laughing. So if I have a group of entities here and I say, which animal is that? And then someone asks, which one are you referring to? I say, the one who is laughing. Then from that property, that extension, which is now an accident, you can know that I'm referring to the human being, because the lion doesn't laugh and the cow doesn't laugh and the donkey doesn't laugh. The human being laughs. And by laughter here, we're not meaning the physical motion of doing it's the more the comprehension of humor and then the reaction to humor. So by that quality, we are referring to something that is intellecting. The terms universal, kulliyun, and particular juz'iyun must be differentiated from terms that refer to an entire entity as a whole, kullun. So you have got kullun is different from kulliyun. You've got kullu, which means all or whole. That's different from kulliyun, which is universal, which allows for exceptions. A part of that whole, juz'un, every member of a group, kulliya, which normally does not allow for exceptions, or one or more members, or one or some members of a group, juz'iyya. For example, an entire entity as a whole, kullun, is the statement, the people of Azhar are scholars. That's you're taking the whole, that's kullun, all the people of Azhar are scholars. Since as a whole they are, yet there are exceptions, as some of them are not. Because if you go to Azhar, not the university, but if you go to Azhar itself, the region, you'll find that some people are scholars, not all people are scholars. So that's not a universal that you're saying. An example of a part of a whole, juz'un, is the thread of a carpet. Like this carpet and the thread of a carpet. That's a part of it. A statement dealing with every member of the group, kulliya, is every human is capable of understanding. A statement dealing with some members of a group, which is juz'iyya, you say some of the people of Azhar are scholars. So, for example, Aristotle begins his book on metaphysics by saying, all men by their nature desire to know. What he's making a statement there is what you call comprehension and extension. I think I spoke about this earlier. You make a comprehensive statement. What you mean in its comprehensiveness might not apply in its extension. So what he's saying in that sense is all men by their nature, their essential nature, desire to know. And this is why children are always asking questions and trying to figure things out. But ultimately, people actually lose that, or they cover it up. Or, they could care less about knowing and learning and discerning things. So in extension of it, ultimately, not everyone will be eager to fulfill that. So the statement is uttering a universal statement in its comprehensive aspect, the kullun of it, all humans all men are capable of or have a desire to know. But in its extension, in its particulars, you will find some are not. And so in its universality, you can say by their nature. This is why he says by their nature. He doesn't say all men have a desire to know. He says all men by their nature have a desire to know. This is why his statement is now seen as correct, because anyone who reads that understands it in its comprehensiveness and understands that when it comes to the particulars, yeah, not all men have that desire to know. So you've got now the essential, which is essential. So the nature of the human being is essential to all human beings. The potential to act on that essential is not essential. It is particulate, because some have the potential and they act on it, and others have the potential but they don't act on it. So that's why you've got the essential universals, and then you've got what you call an accidental. It's something that happens after the essence. It's something that takes place after the essence. So if you look at a flower, for example, the scent of a flower, if you say flowers smell good, if I make that statement, flowers smell good, the good smelling, that's an essential property. It's part of its essence. Even though different flowers will have different scents. A rose will smell different from lavender, which will smell different from jasmine, and so on. But they all share this universal attribute of having a scent. But in their particularities, they are each different in what scent they come up with. Color, for example, would be considered an accident. So you can have a rose that's red, white, pink. I think there are even yellow roses. Each of those has a color, but each color is different. So the idea of having a color is universal among the roses, but the idea of a red color is unique to the red rose. That's why the color is always regarded as an accident. It comes after the essence. You cannot universalize the color because this one is different from that one. So which one do you take as the universal color? Color in our reality is always a particular. It's not universal because each color is different. There's no universal color. An accident is, so you've got, let's do the 10 categories because you'll understand that better. So you've got the 10 categories, and this is how we categorize things. You've got the substance, the jawhar, what a thing is made of. So you can say this is made of wood, and this is made of glass, and this is made of wood, I guess, because it's paper. What is it made of? What is its substance? And the substance has got a material aspect and has also got an elemental aspect. We're not talking about the elements for now. The material aspect is what you're looking at. What substance is it made of? So if you look at the human body, we say that it's made of flesh and it's made of bone. If you look at the human soul, it's made of other than what is flesh and bone. It's not made of any material substance. Then you've got the quantity and the quality. You've got the kamiyya and then the kayfiyya. So how much is it? I've got 3 glasses here, so that's the quantity. It's a tall glass, that's a quality. Then you've got the relation, idafa. What is its relation to other things? How is it related? So, you know, this book is related to this sheaf of paper because both of them have the same subject matter of logic. You see, so-and-so is related to that person because they are brothers. And then he's related to that other person, they are cousins. And that one's related to the other person through friendship. And then that one's related to that one as an uncle. So every one of us has a relation. Everything is relative insofar as this outward world is concerned. From the smallest particular peace to the greatest, biggest celestial bodies. Each thing is relative to the other. Then you've got the wada', which is the position. What placement is it? Like this object, it's on the table. That one is under the table. That one is outside. This one's inside. What is its position? Where is it placed? Then you've got mata wa aina, the time and where. It's that the place is different from the position. So where and when are these two? What time? At what time? In the morning, in the evening, at this time, at that time. Each thing has got its sort of allocation. And then you've got the fi'l wal infi'al, the action and then what's acted upon. You've got the act and then what's acted upon. So the action of sitting on a chair. So the action is the sitting and then the chair is what's being sat upon. And then lastly, you've got the milk, which is the possession. So like this thawb is milk. It's a possession. It's an item of possession. You see, your scarf is an item of possession. It's got a possession. So it belongs to you. So if I want to refer to that scarf, I can say the red scarf, or I can say so-and-so's scarf. And then it is understood to whom it belongs to. So those are the 10 categories. Now, those 10 categories, the jawhar is what gives you the essence of a thing from the foremost. When you're starting to build or abstract, these are the things you start looking out for. And you're always doing this, you're always applying this. You see, you go to the market, give me 5 potatoes. Give me 5, what are they called? Irish potatoes. So you're applying the 10 categories. You're speaking about potatoes, which is that's what its substance is. You are referring to its position, where its place is. You know what time it is. You're referring to the quantity, and you're also referring to the quality because you want good ones. So you're always doing this. You don't need to know exactly what the terms are because you're always doing it intuitively. But when you're getting into now the sciences, this is where you need to now start to identify. Because if you look at the Quran, for example, you need to be able to identify what kind of term is it. Is it referring to a substance? Is it referring to a quantity? What is its placement? What is it designating? What is it connoting and denoting? Is it a genus term? Is it a specific? Is it a differential? Is it differentiating between two terms? These things, this is what we're looking at. So you've got now the universal terms, and then you've got the accidental or the particular, the universal and the particular. The universal is divided into essential and accidental. So universal, particular. Universal is divided into essential and accidental. The accident comes after the essence. The essence comes before it. That's why the word is not made first and then meaning given to it. The meaning already exists before the word is formulated to exemplify or articulate the meaning. So I already have the thought in my mind before I start speaking it out and giving words to it. I don't just utter the words out and then start giving meaning to the words. It doesn't work like that. So of this now, the essential, you've got 3, and the accidents, you've got 2. The 3 of the essentials are the genus, the species, and the differential. And the 2 that belong to the accidents are the specific accident, or what you call the property, and the accidental, which is common, a common accident. So color is a common accident. Everything has got color. Even though each color is different, or each object has a different color, everything has color. So color is a common accident. It's what you call aradun amma. But if I've got 2 individuals, if I've got, let's say, 5 individuals, and 4 of them are tall, 1 of them is short, from that group, the one who is short, his shortness, the accident of the shortness of that person is specific to that person. Because it is unique to that individual. The others do not have that shortness. They're all tall. He's short. So let's go step by step in the text, and then you'll be able to get it better. So what you need to know from this, where you have got the jawhar, which is the substance, and then you've got the arad. And these are the only two that the scholars have identified in reality. Everything falls in these two categories. One is called the a'yan, the other one is called the a'rad. The a'yan is ma yaqumu bi nafsihi. It cannot stand, it cannot be without itself. It has to be itself. It's essential. It is itself. It's essential. And the arad or aradun is ma yaqumu bi ghayrihi. It cannot stand without something else. So the color cannot exist without the flower. The flower is essential to the accident of the color. The flower cannot be without the essence of the flower being there. So if the essence itself doesn't exist, then the thing, the object itself doesn't exist. So if we talk about unicorns, for example, I mean, this goes into deep debates, metaphysical debates about how things exist and whether they exist in reality. Do they exist in concept, in the image? Do they still get an existence? But anyway, we'll not get into those discussions right now. But all you have to know is that you've got the jawhar, the essence of a thing, and then you've got the accident, what comes from that. The event that takes place, for example. Now, if you talk about, let's say in colloquial speech, we talk about an accident taking place outside on the road, right? Two cars crashed into each other. You call that an accident. That accident is something that happened due to something else. And now when the deliberation is being done is when we figure out, oh, okay, so one of the drivers wasn't paying attention, or the road was slippery, or the driver was impaired, or something else happened. So that is what caused the accident to happen. So the accident is essentially the effect of a primary cause. So what is the true reality of it, or what is actually behind it? What's the essence of it? That's what you want to determine by looking at what has transpired as the accident. So that's the kulliya and the juz'iyya, the universal and the particulate. So, imma maqulun fi jawabi ma huwa. So when we now give a response to the question, what is it? We're given a response to the question, what is it? بحسب الشركة المحضة كالحيوان بالنسبة إلى الإنسان والفرس وهو الجنس ويرسم بأنه كلي مقول على كثيرين مختلفين بالحقائق في جواب ما هو. So what is then spoken in response to the question, what is it? When you're asking now the what question, the first what question, in accordance to the associated particulars, like you've got animal as the universal in association to the particulars such as human and horse, that is called the genus. That word that you are using in association with particulars, that term is called the genus. So there's this object, this object, this object, and that and that. And then I ask, what is this? What is this? And you say, it is a book. So the term book is the genus term in association to all these particulars. Meaning I can apply that term to this object as a book, and this can also be called a book, and that can be called a book. The term that I'm using here, that's the genus term. It is the overall, the thing, the word that encompasses all the elements there. So if we say vegetables, that's a genus term. Then from vegetables, you've got edible and non-edible vegetables from the vegetative kingdom. Then from edible vegetables, you've got carrots and cabbages and all those things. Those now become particular. So if I've got a whole bunch of carrots and cabbages and onions and all these things, and I ask, what is this? And you say, these are vegetables. That's a universal term, and that term is called a genus term. Then comes now the species. Now, but let me read the footnote here. Is there a footnote to this? Yeah, there's a footnote here. For example, Hayawan is a genus since it is a universal that encompasses every essential nature, Mahiya, shared between multiple members that differ in their realities. It is the thing that is common among all the entities, though they differ in their true realities. There is a commonality. So each person has a different face. They look different, but you collectively call them human because human is a genus and they all share that human attribute. That is, creature includes the human, horse, gazelle, and the rest of the animal kingdom, each animal differing from the rest in its own essential nature. Since the complete essential nature of a human differs from that of a horse, which differs from that of a gazelle, etc. However, their essential natures have a shared component, namely that they are all called creatures. Each, therefore, can individually be called creature. Because they are each sharing that essential nature, each one can be called a creature. So I'm a creature, that one's a creature, this one's a creature. Why? Because we are all creations. But though creature is the wrong term to be used here, because creature is makhluk. It should be animal in the translation. Hayawan, because he's referring to hayawan. Hayawan is animal. So hayawan, so we're all animals. You see, we're from the animal kingdom because we are animate. So you've got being, and then you've got types of being. You've got wujud al-dhihni, which is existence like in concept in the mind, and then you've got wujud al-khariji, which is reality, the external reality. Then from that you've got animate and inanimate. So inanimate like stone, sand, tree, these type of things, these are inanimate. You've got animate objects or animate entities. And so these are what you call animals because they have got motion, they've got volition, they've got some level of intellection taking place from the most rudimentary to a creature like the human being, for example. So these are what you call animate, and this is where the word animal comes from. So the human being is an animal. And because we're sharing that individually, it can be called an animal. The question, what is it, is the definition, in the definition above, is used to ask regarding the essential nature, mahiya, of a thing. That question, the mahiya, this is what you call in Latin quiddity. You're trying to draw out its whatness by asking the question, what is it? So the it is the object. The it is the object. And you're asking the what question. So you want to know the whatness of the thing. What is it? That's what the question is, mahiya. I.e. its essential components that make up its reality, such as being a creature and being rational. So being an animal and being rational. Al-hayawan an-natiq. So he is hayawan and he is natiq. That is its whatness. You're drawing out its essential reality. With respect to the human, attributes of a thing that are not essential are termed accidental or accidents. So for example, having two legs, insofar as that genus is concerned of animal, having two legs is an accident. Why? Because certain animals have two legs and other animals have four legs. And that's why you cannot classify that as the distinguishing feature, because it's an accident. Because humans have two legs, well, birds also have two legs, and therefore you cannot specify that the human being is a creature with two legs, because that's an accident. It's not essential to the human being only. It has got other creatures in that category have that accident also. So red, for example, is not essential to flowers. This is why the accident cannot be used to classify an entity because it comes as a result of the entity. So red, for example, if I say red, it cannot be taken to mean that I meant flower by the word red, because an apple can be red, and this table can be red, and the wall can be red. I could be referring to anything that has the color red. So it doesn't give you the specificity of it. So attributes of a thing that are not essential are termed accidental or accidents, meaning the thing can be logically conceived of without those traits. Without those accidents, you can still have a concept of what the thing is. So I can still talk about a flower without referring to its color. I can say a rose by any color smells just the same. Any color. Without referring to the color, without saying a red rose or a white rose, I can still say a rose smells good or a rose smells pleasant. I can still refer to its essential nature without referring to the accidents, and still be what it is, regardless of whether those traits are inseparable or separable from that thing. For the human, these would include things like walking or laughing. That is, a human being can be logically conceived of without the qualities of walking or laughing, while still be considered a human being. However, a human being cannot be logically conceived of without the qualities of being a creature or having the capacity to think rationally, while still be considered a human being. So, rationality and being of the animal genus is essential to the human being. So without those, it cannot be conceived of a human being. Those are its essential qualities. Those are not accidental qualities. Finally, there are 3 types of genus. You've got the proximate genus, which is qareeb. It is close. The term is as close as possible to the entity. You've got the intermediate, which is wasatun. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a little bit vague, but it's got some precision to it. And then you have got ba'id, which is further away. It's remote. From the perspective of the human, the proximate genus is hayawan. It's a proximate. It's the closest genus term that you can apply to the human being. An intermediate genus term is to say that which grows, because plants also grow. Even the clouds can grow in size. So, but it is a true term because the human being grows. So it is applied, but it is not close in specificity. It's got vagueness to it. So if I say that which grows, I could be referring to anything. I could be referring to plants, or I could be referring to the clouds growing when it's raining, or I could be referring to whatever else. An intermediate, so that's the intermediate genus term. And a remote term would be the body. If I say a body, if I say jismun, if I just say a body, that is very remote. So the human being has a body, but if I just say body, I could be referring to a body of water. I could be referring to the body of a cow. I could be referring to the body of a car. You see, I could be referring to any body in that sense. That's too remote. It's too removed from the specificity. Now, it feels a bit confusing right now, but when we come to qawl al-sharih, when we come to definitions, to building definitions, you will see how important it is to be specific on these terms. The remoteness of a genus then refers to its being broader. Creature encompasses other animals along with humans. That which grows encompasses plants, for example, as they are not creatures but they do grow. And body can encompass inanimate objects that do not grow. So an inanimate object can be a body as well, but it doesn't grow. Right? Do we have time? Should we stop here and then? Yeah, so that was the jins. And then the next one is the arad. The naw'. Yeah, let's stop here inshallah because then I can explain the naw' and the fasl, because the fasl is the differentia and the naw' is the type or the species, and that term species is not biological. We're not using it in biology. There's different definition for species. It's more in terms of logic. It's the differentia that helps you separate the naw' from the rest of the entities in the genus category. So if we have animal, for example, then you've got the human, the dog, the cow, the cat, all those. How do you differentiate the specific? How do you arrive at that specificity? That's the differentia. So I'll explain those two together, inshallah. So let's stop here. We'll take a quick break, 5 minutes, and then resume for questions. Please keep your questions ready and at hand so we can progress quickly before it's Maghrib time for me. Inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. See you in a bit. Okay, inshallah, let's start. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
Yes. Mr. Roshan, you may ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum, Ustad.
Alaikum salam. Roshan Bhai, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Thank you very much for your wisdom. I thought that the class on Ilmul Nafs would be difficult, but it appears that this one is more difficult than the other one. And I think it's me because I was never good in language in the beginning, even from childhood, even up till now. You have to bear with me and forgive me if I made a mistake. I have to go back 2 classes before. I wrote something. I want to know if it is true. I wrote in my book here, according to what you say, meanings do exist outside of language. The image in the mind, the name and the meaning are not the same. The function of the object defines the object. The meaning comes before the object. The form doesn't define the object. For example, the form of a glass does not define that it is a thing to drink from. The drinking function defines the glass as an object to drink from. Am I correct here?
Yes, you're correct.
Perfect.
Yes.
Now, my second question is regarding today's class. I'm a bit confused regarding the essential and the accident. Now, you say the essential, for example, of a flower is its smell, and the accident of a flower is its color. I'm a bit confused here because, for example, you said the color would not exist without the flower. But then in my mind, I say, but the scent also
Yes.
would not exist without the flower. So can you explain that a bit more?
The scent, I was referring to it being universal, not essential. So the scent of a flower is universal among flowers. So all flowers have a scent. The essence is different. So the universal is then separated into the essential and non-essential. ذاتي أو عرضي. So you've got universality in things. So flowers, for example, are universally known to have fragrance. That's its universality. The scent is accidental. Yes, it's not essential. The scent is not essential. It is accidental from the flower. Its essence is what it is. That's anyway, whenever you talk about essence of a thing, you're talking about what it is. as it is, what is its nature? Its essence, what is it? So, if you look at the human being, what is the essence of a human being? And you can find that essence as is also defined by the Quran, that it is a creature that has got intellection or has intelligence or is a creature that can speak. So the logicians, yeah, go on.
So you would say that the flower universally, like the universal, I guess, trait or quality of the flower is the smell.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, it's universal. It's a universal quality among flowers. Yeah.
Okay.
So a universal
Yeah.
quality among human beings is that they are rational. That's a universal quality among human beings. Is that they all share this as something that's part of them. Well, and then it can be argued some humans are not rational, some are irrational. That's accidental now because sometimes they are rational, sometimes they're not rational. But universally, they all share the property of or the quality of rationality.
Jazakallah khair, Ustad.
When you draw the flow chart, when you draw the flow chart, that's how you will separate it. Yeah. Is this the webcam? This is the webcam. Okay. Let me see if I can. Saif, can you take a quick screenshot of that and then share that screenshot so I don't have to hold this while I'm explaining? Let me bring it a bit more closer.
I've taken the screenshot as well.
Can you share that screenshot so everyone can see like in a much expanded form?
Ustad, I'm sharing on the Telegram group. Is it okay?
No, share it like on the screen. Share like on the screen also. I just want to quickly explain on the flowchart.
Okay, 1 second. But do let me know, Ustad, when it is visible on the screen.
I'm not seeing it on my side. Okay, I think
It
it's
should be visible now.
right. Okay, it's coming up now. Right, it's a bit blurry, but I hope you can just follow along with it. So he says in the text, he says, ثُمَّ اللَّفْظُ إِمَّا مُفْرَدٌ, and then he says, وَإِمَّا مُؤَلَّفٌ. So the lafz, the uttered word, is either basic or it is composite. Mufrad or composite. So we're not dealing with composite right now. Composite is essentially just an expansion of the basic. It will have the same subcategories as mu'allaf. From that he says that wal mufradu imma kulliyun wa imma juz'iyun. It is either kulliyun, universal, or particular, juz'iyun. So we're not doing juz'iyun right now, we're looking at just the kulliya. From the kulliya, he says imma dhati wa imma aradi. So imma dhatiyun wa imma aradiyun. It is either essential or accidental. So the kulliya, the universal term, is either essential or it is accidental. The accidental cannot be essential, the essential cannot be accidental. As for the essential, which is dhatiyun, that's the essence, it is either genus, jins, naw'u, or the type or specific, or faslun, which is differentia or the difference. As for the genus term, it can either be close in proximity, qareeb, middle or intermediate, somewhere in between, or ba'id, further or distant from the essence itself. So you can have a term that is close to the essence of the object. If I say human, I'm referring to the human, that's a close term. If I say something that grows, I'm referring to a middle term. It's somewhere in between, it's not close. If I say a body, it's very distant because I could be referring to something else as well. As for the arad, there are only two types. There is aradun khasa and aradun amma. There is the khas, specific or unique, which is what you call the property, and amma, which is a common accident among all the entities, all the particulars in that group. Okay, so when you draw out your flow chart, this is what you look out for. As we're going through the different lines, you take that term and you apply it in the category of the flow chart. That will give you an idea of how this grouping is done. Inshallah, you can stop sharing that. But I hope, Roshan, you can maybe use that and maybe you understand this part as well.
Yeah, Jazakumullah khair. It's actually very well explained now. That's why I wanted that flow chart last week, just to compare it with what I have. Thank you very much.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah. Anyone else wants to ask a question? Thank you. And you may please unmute yourself now.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sir, you explained about comprehensive term. I think that was a comprehensive statement which extends to, it doesn't extend to extensions, but it is a generalized term. So there was an example in the group which we were discussing. Suppose we say something like, a Muslim is honest. And then we go to a particular case, suppose this person, whatever the name, is not honest. And then we deduce, therefore he is not a Muslim. I'm not saying that we are judging somebody, but in logic, if it's, you're not allowed to judge anyone, but in, if we look at it regarding, in terms of deduction and induction, so where is the fallacy in this statement?
So a phrase like that, a Muslim is honest, that would be a comprehensive. And then you would now see in its extension, because the comprehensive applies universally, the extension applies in the particulars. So comprehensively you would say a Muslim is honest. Why? Because Islam dictates honesty. But then such a Muslim is not honest, though that other Muslim is honest. Right? So in the particulars, the extensions are not applying. This is very important in so far as the terms are concerned. I think I spoke about this when I said the term. The term has a comprehension and has an extension. Each term has got its comprehension and got an extension. The comprehension applies in a much broader category, like seeing the forest for the trees. And then the extension is seeing the trees for the forest. So as a comprehension of a forest, you can say that forest is beautiful. So you're just taking the forest in particular. But when you go into the particular now, you might see certain parts of the forest are not beautiful. There's a swamp going on somewhere and there's something else. You see? So comprehensively, you're giving the whole, the broad. So when we did the 10 principles, for example, that's a comprehensive. The 10 principles of logic that we did, that's the comprehension of it. Now we're going into the extensions of it. We're looking at each individual particular. And this is something that I mean, the modern world is trying to sort of remove comprehension, and they want to analyze everything in particulars, each thing in its own particulate, which is problematic because there are universals. They don't want to acknowledge universals. They want to go right down into the particulates and the quantities and the exact measurements of each thing. And you often see this in their arguments. And their arguments usually cannot sort of cross over. So you can't universalize them. They look at each entity within its own framework and they conclude within the framework, and then they say that that's the reality of the thing. Yet there is a relation with other frameworks or a broader framework, for example. And unfortunately, many Muslims also think in this regard. And this is why I say always, don't get hung up on semantics. Don't get hung up on particulars. Don't get hung up within isolated frameworks. Because within isolated frameworks, you might have an affirmative conclusion, but then in a bigger framework, you might end up having a negative conclusion. You see? You take the epistemology between Musa and Al-Khadr, for example. Within the framework of Al-Khadr killing a child, Musa drew the conclusion that this is murder. But a bigger framework was taking place here. And the logic expanded to that. And when he explained it is when he started making, okay, now it makes sense to me. Because that's the comprehensive of it. Musa was looking at the particular incident, but there's a much bigger framework here that is missing from your analysis. That this child would end up, causing problems, and this is what the decision was made to remove and to put another and to give another child to these parents. So now the logic of that incident makes sense, and it changes from a negative to an affirmative. So that's how you always have to begin with the comprehension of a thing before you go into the particular of a thing. And this is what we're doing. We're doing the tasawwur. The comprehension begins with the genus, and then you look at the specific type, and then you look at what differentiates it, and then you now look at the accidentals. The accidentals now come in under the extension of a thing. They're sort of the effects of the thing. And when people start analyzing only the accidents, then they're always going to be swimming around in semantics. They're always going to be going round and round in circles without getting a universal understanding out of it. And that's contrary to human psychology, because we are designed as muwahidun. We are designed to universalize things. Ultimately, the heart, which is the seat of understanding, is not designed to comprehend particulars. There are just way too many particulars that the heart cannot comprehend that. And so, as a ni'mah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the ability to universalize everything. So we look at a group of trees and we know through their characteristics that a tree is supposed to have leaves and branches and this and that. So whenever we see a tree, we group it together as a tree. We conceptualize the universality of that object. If we see a bunch of stones, we universalize them. We see sand, we universalize it. We cannot comprehend each and every particular grain. So that's what comprehension is. Comprehension is grasping its comprehensiveness. I mean, we're talking in the English language here, so it's a bit difficult to expand.
Where do exceptions fall then? It's like in language what we say exceptions. So will that be an extension of the extension?
Exceptions come in when you're now talking about rules and principles. That's where exceptions come in. So you've got rules and then you've got exceptions to the rule. So the exception is so the rule is the norm of a thing. That's what the law is. The law is the normality of everything. But then there are particular incidents that can occur that would demand an exception to the law or an exception to the rule. So those come in as part of the extensions. You're correct. They come in as part of the extensions, not as the comprehensions. The universal always stays the same. The universal does not change. That's why it is called a universal. It does not change. The concept that we form is the comprehension of the thing. The concept has got 5 properties. I spoke about this as well. 5 properties. The first property is that it is purely spiritual. The concept is purely spiritual. It's got no material aspect to it. The concept is not part of the material world. It's part of the spiritual realm. The second is that it is purely an abstraction, what you call tajreed. Yujarridu anil a'rad, to abstract, to draw out from the particulars, from the accidentals. So it's purely an abstraction. It's not the object itself. I cannot take the object itself and put it in my mind. I have to abstract something from it. The third is that the concept only deals with what you call wajibat, necessary attributes, not possibilities or impossibilities. What is necessary about a thing, that's what the concept regards. The fourth is that it is universal. The concept is always universal. It's never particular. And so the external, because the concept is of the spiritual domain, and universals are part of the spiritual domain. Universals don't exist in the physical domain. In the physical domain, each thing is a particular. Each thing has got its different. Though it may seem like it's similar to something else, each thing is its own thing. So this is the domain of particulars. Universals are part of the spiritual domain. Therefore, the concept itself only pertains universals. It doesn't pertain particulars. And the last thing is that the concept is always the same. It doesn't change. It remains the same. Once you've grasped the essence of a thing and you have conceptualized it, it remains like that. It doesn't change. And when I'm saying grasped it, like grasped it in its entirety, insofar as its mutabaqa with reality is concerned, meaning it's a truth. And once that truth has settled in the heart, it doesn't go away. It remains. It doesn't change. It doesn't alter. It doesn't become something else. So those are the 5 aspects of that. When you're speaking about exceptions, you're talking about the external world. You're talking about the world of the extension of things now, from extending from the concept, extending from the comprehension of a thing. It's sort of an anomaly, or it's a particular incident that demands sort of a suspension in the law itself. So insofar as, let's say, society is concerned, you have the Sharia. The Sharia says, if somebody steals, you chop off their hands. That's an explicit statement in the Quran. However, Umar radiallahu anhu suspended the punishment in times of famine. And there were incidences where, like for example, somebody stole and was brought before Umar, and he let him go. He didn't chop off his hand. Why? Because the circumstance that is particular demanded that the law be suspended. You cannot chop off people's hands for not stealing out of greed or stealing out of a vice or wrongdoing, but stealing out of necessity. So you cannot apply punishment to that. This was his reasoning, and he was using logic in that incident. So that's the exception to the rule, or the exception to the law. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Jazakallah khair. One more question, please. You told us about wujud al-daini and wujud Farisi. I think that was the term. What is the meaning of what is meant by lafz al-dalala?
Lafz al-dalala is the lafz that has a signification, the uttered term that signifies something. And what does it signify, and how is its signification? For example, you can say, go on.
Is that also divided into time?
Come again? Divided into?
Type.
Yeah, it will be divided into all these 5 predicables. the genus, the types, it will be divided into all that. So a term can signify a genus group. If I use the word animal, I'm using a genus term, and so it's signifying the genus of the group. If I say human, I'm referring to a type of animal, so that's a term that is signifying a type of animal, like that. That's what lafdhu dalla means, or lafdhu dalala. So the dalil is the proof, right? We say dalil is proof. What does the proof do? It's signifying something. It's signifying a truth. So adala is a signification. When you use a word, a term, what does the term signify? If I say, bring me a glass of water, then the term glass of water is signifying that object with that fluid in it and for the purpose that it would be used for. Now, I might take that glass of water and not drink it and maybe pour it into the plant. So the signification of that glass of water, insofar as quenching my thirst, has changed to putting it in the plant. The signification may change. And words can have multiple significations even within the same context or within the same statement. You could say he's a good Muslim. Sheikh Hamza used this example, if I can remember it correctly. He's a good Muslim riding a good horse on a good journey. So the word good there has been used 3 times, but then each of those 3 times the signification is different. So good Muslim may mean he's a righteous individual. A good horse will not mean that it's a righteous horse. It will mean that he's a strong or a fast horse. The good journey will not mean that it's a strong or a fast journey. It may mean that the journey itself is good. Maybe he's going to the masjid, for example, or he's going for Umrah or something, or Hajj. You see? So in each of those 3 instances, the term good has a different signification. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Jazakallah Ustad. There is one more question. I think it's the last question.
Mm-hmm.
The question is it possible that a person abandons logic and reason completely? Or is it because that their emotions have overpowered their logic? And if that is the case, does it mean that the premise are faulty due to perhaps preconceived notions which is making them incapable of reasoning and eventually arriving to the truth?
Yes, it's possible that logic and reason can be abandoned completely. And a clear example is when Musa's mother was seeing her child being lifted by Fir'aun's wife. And the Quran says her heart was farigha. It was like almost emptied, and she could have made a blunder. So logic dictated that she keep silent over it, but she was about to abandon reason, and it would have messed up everything. It would have caused Musa to be caught and her to be caught. So it's possible where the emotions of the self can be so overwhelming that they inflame the heart, and then no logic or reason is applied whatsoever. But in the majority of that, now that's in the case whereby there is a reason for that happening. There's a cause to why that is happening. It's not just happening at random. In most cases, in the general cases, logic and reason will still be applied and will be applied as the norm. That's now, the abandoning of it is the exception now. We spoke about the norm and then the exception to it. So the abandonment of logic and reason is the exception to it. Logic and reason will be applied as the norm. The difference is in applying proper logic and reason or being illogical and unreasonable. You see? So you'll always be applying logic. It's either sound logic or it's illogical, and that's why you have fallacies. So we'll come to the last section in this text, inshallah. He's going to talk about the 5 modes of of presentation or argumentation. And one of those is logical fallacies. It's still logic, it's just fallacious, or it's incorrect, or it's wrong. So logic and reason is applied. What was the second part of the question? There was a second part to that.
Ustad, the second part of the question was that if that is the case, that their emotions have empowered them, does it mean that their premises are faulty due to perhaps preconceived notions, which is making them incapable of reasoning and eventually arriving to the truth?
It's possible, yeah, it is possible, because if the premises from the very beginning are incorrect or have been wrongly influenced, then the conclusion will be false, and that falsity can cause them to be in a state of distress. And in a state of distress, the emotions start coming out. In Urdu we say jazbat. You see, you become jazbati. You like inflamed with emotion now, and you tell the guy, calm down, don't just think rationally. So because of, it's like a trigger, you see, the logic always begins with a premise. And if the premise is sound, then the conclusion will be sound. If the premise is false, then the conclusion will be false. And in many cases, it will cause you internal distress. And the false premises can come from within your own convolutions, especially now when you start trying to build logic out of speculations. That's very dangerous, to try and build a logical conclusion out of speculations, because speculations can go in multitudes of ways. So you'll be looking for multitudes of conclusions. And when you don't find all those conclusions, then it puts you in a state of restlessness. Or it can come from external influences, preconceived notions, prejudicial perceptions. All these will cause the logic to be flawed. These are one of the reasons why Ibn Taymiyyah argues against the logicians who went into metaphysical reasoning and started drawing wrong conclusions. He talked about the assumptions or the suppositions. He says this is where they lie, because they begin with a false assumption or a false supposition, then they construct the logic out of it. Well, the logic makes sense, but then the conclusion is always wrong, and it's contrary to what the Quran says. And that puts them in a negative state instead of a positive state. Now, there's another question. Roshan?
Roshan,
Yes.
you may unmute yourself.
I just had something in my mind. The logic applies to subjective and objective truth, but I don't think we can apply that to absolute truth. Am I correct?
You can apply it to absolute truth if the absolute truth is evidently known. For example, one of the most easiest syllogisms, which will come up in the text, is all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal, right? Now, that's an absolute truth. And so far as the premise is concerned, the first premise being all men are mortal, the truth in that is that it is true. It's an absolute truth, and you can derive from that. But primarily, logic functions as a medium to arriving closer to the absolute truth. It will help you move from a subjective level to an objective level, and then move again from an objective level to absolute truth. It's supposed to facilitate the passageway, but it can be applied to analyzing absolute truths as well. So you can look at the Quran, for example, and you can apply logic to understand what an ayah is saying by looking at what is the term. This term, is it a genus term? Is it like this? Is it being spoken like that? What context is it on? You're doing all this. This is logic you're doing.
Yeah, when I was analyzing the Battle of Uhud, right, when Rasulullah was planning the fight, right, with the Mushrikun, he did everything right in the planning. So I guess he applied logic to defend Medina, but then though he did that, his plan did not succeed because some of the Sahaba did not obey him. And then later on, I think in Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command him to be lenient with those Sahaba and not to punish them, to be harsh with them, right? And then there was an ayah that was revealed at that time. It says that Muhammad is only a messenger, and messengers came before, and if you were to die, like, would you go back to the way you were before, right? But that ayah never applied during the time of the Prophet, and it only applied at the end of his life after his death, right? So here, if we were to apply logic in that event, then we will not be able to apply it to the absolute truth, which is only Allah knows why the plan came like this, why he planned it that way, because it was, I believe, this is what I analyze it, what I come up with is, I believe it was for the whole Ummah to be put back to the deen of Islam even after Rasulullah passed away. But that will be only absolute truth, will be only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will not be able to arrive with that on that absolute truth with pure logic.
Well, the absolute truth is not something that we come up with. Absolute truth, I mean, in all general, at the end of the day, everything that the human being knows has to affirm that only Allah knows better or Allah knows best, whatever it might be. And this is why every ayah, it's only our attempt to try and understand it. We recognize it as the absolute truth on the premise of where its origin is, its source origin. So when we come to propositions, that's when you will understand this better, because you're looking at a statement. The first and foremost thing is to affirm it as a statement. And some affirmations are made based purely on the origin of where they come from. If your father was to tell you something, you wouldn't think that your father is lying to you. Why? Because he's your father and he's the one who is saying it. You see? So we were looking at absolute truth insofar as the Quran is concerned, the Hadith is concerned, on the premise of the one who has said it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words, we affirm that as truth. Why? It's from Allah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's words, we affirm as the truth. Why? He's the messenger of Allah. Insofar as understanding it now or coming to an understanding of the reasons why, that's something that we can only make an effort towards arriving at. But ultimate unveiling will not take place in this domain. It will only take place in the hereafter. So we're just attempting to arrive at. So your analysis of trying to understand why did the Prophet's plan fail, I think that's the wrong approach to take. Because obviously he did everything that was right by his analysis at the time. But the plan failed due to a causal relation. See, some of the Sahabas did not follow the plan. If they had all followed the plan, then yes, we could say the possibility or probability of success in this case would have been higher. But the probability of success was lessened because not everyone followed the plan. And this is what the admonition was given afterwards. You did not fail because the enemy was stronger than you. You failed because you did not listen to your messenger. So when your messenger dies, are you going to go back to the way you were before? I hope that makes sense. No.
Yeah, it does make sense, but it was only the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that succeeded at that moment.
No. Yes, go on, inshallah. 2 questions really quickly because I think we have about 5 minutes left for Maghrib for me.
Yeah, Fatma, you may ask the question.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
that was my question previously regarding the logic. So my intention of asking was about absolute truth, not the subjective. So, like you said, if the father says something to his son about a statement or about something that it is true, the son has no reason to think or assume that the father may be lying. So my question exactly is that what if the son assumes or believes, not just assume, but believes that the father might be lying or the father is lying? So did that assumption come from a lack of logic or reason, or is it because he has a preconceived notion about his father that he lies usually, or he has a habit of lying, or he's not truthful? So is that coming from logic, or is that coming from lack of logic?
I would say it is coming from an illogical standpoint, because the first thing that he should do in that regard is to distinguish between a lie and something that's incorrect. Because you've got something that's truth and then you've got something that's correct. You've got haqiqa and then you've got waqi'iyah. So you've got something that's factual and something that's truth. And so it is
factual.
Yeah. So that's where, yeah. It could be factual, but then the facts are being manipulated for lies, to tell a lie. So yeah, it can be correct, and then that correctness, though it is seen as correctness and you can apply logic to analyze the correctness of it, it still turns out to be a lie, not the truth. So logic doesn't actually give you the truth. It only facilitates an analysis to arrive at the truth. You have to remember that this is a process. You go through the process to arrive closer to something that you can ascertain as the truth. And it can help you uncover, in fact, it can help you uncover things that are not factual or things that are incorrect. Because the more correct a thing is, the better your chances of arriving at the truth. So on the merit of being the father, the child may assume that because he's my father, he's telling the truth. That can be one premise. The second premise can be based on the persona of the father himself, or the reputation of the father himself, that the father is known by the child to always say the truth. So he's going by that premise, that he's always spoken the truth, so why should I believe that he's lying now? These are some of the premises that when the Arabs who are analyzing the Prophet ﷺ, they were going by these kinds of premises. Muhammad was always known to speak the truth, and so many people accepted what he was saying based only on that premise. Muhammad has always shown to be honest, or always shown to do things correctly or doing things the right way, and others were therefore going on that premise because he had participated a few times in some of the affairs of the Quraysh, and they trusted him. This is where Al-Amin, the trustworthy one, as a title was given to him. So you can go on that premise as well. And still others took their time. They analyzed what he was saying. They did not accept what he was saying simply based on him saying it. There are others who took their time, they analyzed it, they looked at this, the ayat kept on coming, and they were now able to build together, formulate an understanding, and then affirm what he was saying as the truth. So some accepted Islam immediately, others took their time, right? So, but without applying any sort of premise to an understanding, and to conclude from the very onset, he's lying to me. How do you know he's lying to you? Doesn't he always speak the truth? Yeah, he always speaks the truth, but he's lying to me right now. How do you know he's lying to you? There's the possibility of a preconceived notion there, or does not want to accept the truth, or whatever other reason there might be that's prompting this sort of logic to come up. And when you break it down, you will find a lot of fallacies in there. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Jazakallah khairs.
Shakila, guys, please unmute yourself.
Last question, inshallah. Jazakumullah.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Yeah. It's not a question, but if you have few minutes,
Mhm.
then I would just like to share two small little fruits that I thought that is just because of the logic that I could able to understand that. The very first one is this line of Ephesians we normally read in this Arabic grammar, and I was never able to understand what this jins is, line of jins. And now I know like what is line of jins. So this helps me actually in categorizing these jins. And second thing is it's a chat going between a mother and a son, and they were talking about fasting, and the son, he said like the duration of the fast is like 16 and 17 hours, and then mother said like how Islam know that this intermittent fasting is really good for health and something, and then the son replies, then what about the countries where it's about only 6 or 7 hours? Then it must be an intermittent fasting. Now I could understand that this is not the definition of fasting actually, and they are just talking about the accident.
Yes.
And that's why they were not able to resolve the problem.
That's right.
And then I myself, like, I tried to find out, like, what is the definition of this fasting? And then I come up with, like, it's taqwa. It's the main, it's essence of the fasting. Like, pray, we do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but fasting is for taqwa. So they are talking about the accidents, so they couldn't able to come up with some good conclusion or solution.
Yes.
So this is something that I have from this logic understanding.
Yeah.
So may Allah reward you immensely. I
Mashallah.
really appreciate your work.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah, that is good. Excellent. I like.
And I'm really happy, like when I got understanding. Now I really listen on the people's voice, what they are saying, is the definition correct, if they are looking correctly or something. Like there's something like intuitive in my mind. Alhamdulillah.
Inshallah. Once we finish everything, you'll be able to master everything and it will become intuitive and you would be able to apply it to all aspects of your life. Inshallah.
Ameen.
Now,
Now we go to pray.
let's end here, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanaka wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. See everyone next week. Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.